GM-less tabletop RPGs are on the rise, giving everyone at the table a share of the storytelling, world building, and roleplay, without the stress or the prep. But if you are a game master at heart, you thrive on guiding players through a world that you've built and keeping the game running smoothly. In this episode, we're breaking down the 3 GM-less strategies you should master to quickly level up your GM-led games. Welcome to Claim to Game. We help tabletop gamers have a great time with friends to experience amazing stories. It can be overwhelming to start and run great games. Let's make it easier for you to play any game you want to have fun with your friends. I'm Clint.scheirer, and I've helped thousands of students in my career find their way to better themselves and better their game. With more than 10 years experience in leadership, coaching, live performance, and public speaking, I know I can help you create immersive, low-stress games you'll never forget. It's time for you to make your claim to game. Hello and welcome back to episode 37, season 2 of Claim to Game, still a predominantly educational fun podcast in which I am daring to coin the word fungicational. It's like 22 million hamsters running at maximum energy on little wheels to power the electricity of a single average house at peak condition. We've been taking a good long look at GM-less tabletop RPGs over the past couple of episodes. First, in episode 35, we talked about the top 5 best GM-less tabletop RPGs according to the r/RPG Reddit community. Next, we looked at some obstacles to overcome when switching from a GM-led game to a GM-less game. And now, it's time to turn the tables, or as Michael Scott likes to say, well, how the turntables. If you are a game master and your heart is set on being the game master because you like it, you love it, and you want some more of it, then consider this. What can a game master learn? What can a game master steal and master from a GM-less game to make his or her GM-led games even more wonderful? I've got 3 strategies for you here. 1, allow your players to participate in the world building. 2, use GM-less Oracle tables in your GM-led games. And finally, 3, the yes and principle from long-form improv comedy. Let's go. First up, allowing your players to participate in the world building. In an upcoming episode, I'll be having a conversation with professional game master David Northeast. And David is a big supporter of the importance of letting your players shape the world. Most of his games are a sandbox with the basic trappings of a world in which he then places his 4 agents of chaos. And that's a shout out to Craig Shipman for the new title that I give all of my players. So how do you do this? How do you channel the spirit of a GM-less RPG, which often allows all players through the mechanics to contribute to the world building for the world that they're playing in? How do you do that in a GM-led game? Let's use the examples of Ironsworn and Ironsworn Starforged. These games use role tables, which we will lean into a little bit harder in just a minute. And these role tables provide pre-made prompts that are just vague enough for players to interpret and create a unique aspect in the world. So let's keep going with Ironsworn Starforged is the main example. One of the first activities that you do, that Sean Tompkins has you do in this GM-less version of the game, is you need to choose your truths. And these truths set the tone and the background for the campaign and the world that the characters are going to explore. Sean provides some categories of these truths, which players can either come up with answers out of their own mind, or if they're having trouble coming up with something, they can roll 2 10-sided dice, 2d10, to get a number that's between 1 and 100. One of the dice will be the 1's place, and the other dice will be the 10's place. You put those 2 numbers together to get a number between 1 and 100. Find where your number is on the roll table, which will determine that pre-made truth. A key aspect or a key truth that you need to create when you're playing Starforged is the cataclysm, which is something horrific or something cataclysmic that happened in your people's home galaxy, which drove them to travel to the new galaxy of the Forge, which is where your gameplay takes place. I've already gone ahead and rolled my 2d10 and got the number 36. And on page 84 of the Ironsworn Starforge Core Rulebook, this tells me that my cataclysm is an interdimensional invasion of beings into my people's reality. And as a player, if I'm the one rolling this, I can expand upon this using the creativity of my own mind, or I can go one level deeper using the roll table prompt on page 84 again. So I did that. I went ahead and I rolled 2d10, and the game, when I got my number 71, the game tells me that these beings were titanic creatures of horrific power. Now notice that these prompts are high level enough and not too specific to tell exactly what the nature of the cataclysm is, or the specifics of these creatures that are invading my galaxy. So one player may say that these titanic, horrific creatures are giant centipedes from Starship Trooper style, or another might say they're vampire goats with octopus tentacles. The player creates the world, they create the obstacles. And the secret that we can learn here as a GM, just like when we are seeing this in GM-less games, ask open-ended questions that are not too specific, but just specific enough to spark players' imagination for them to add on to the world. Some other examples of these questions may be you asking your players, and what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel in this area? Or what do you notice about this place? What do you want to do with this item or this location? Or what do you think might happen if you insert action here? The answers to this question provide rocket fuel for you to allow your players and their characters to shape the world instead of them having to be confined to all the pre-made aspects that the GM, could lay out for them. So this type of strategy, this game master allowing the players to build the world with them, really avoids the common complaint that some players have of being railroaded, which, if you've never heard that term, that is just the situation where the GM constrains the player's choices, forcing the story to follow a predetermined path or limiting the player's agency. If you want to hear more about this, be sure to listen to the upcoming episode with David Northeast. Next up, as promised, is using GM-less game oracle tables to spark imagination. Now, this secret is not so secret, and it was revealed previously when we were talking about bringing players into the world building. But I want you to consider roll tables as a quick way for you as a game master to give yourself an open-ended question or give yourself a direction in your improvisation to own the moment in your storytelling creation. Now, roll tables are not new to tabletop RPGs, not new to the tabletop RPG community, and whether it's a chart or a table with a list of names for characters, NPCs, magical weapons, or appropriate enemies for any given system or any given situation, these tables can help you make quick decisions. It provides immersion without planning. Now, there are some fantastic roll tables provided with GM-less games, but my absolute favorites appear, no shocker, in Ironsworn and Ironsworn Starforge. Some of the roll tables are setting specific to the Ironlands for Starforge and to the Forge, the galaxy that you play in when you play Starforged. But there are some universal tables in these games that I think I've actually used in other games to help me run games like Pathfinder 2e, Dungeons & Dragons 5e, as well as some lesser-known one-shot RPGs. So here are my favorite 3 system-agnostic roll tables that I love using from Ironsworn. Action and theme, descriptor and focus, as well as characters' roles, goals, and aspects. Now, I want to go a little deeper into the action and theme table because this oracle I find so helpful if I want a unique twist to a situation that I normally wouldn't consider being a game master as things arise in my game. Now, before I give you an example, you may have noticed that I've been using the term oracle and oracle tables as well as roll tables synonymously, and they're really the same thing. It is a table, a chart, where you roll a number and then there is a corresponding word with that number. Here's my example of how this works. Maybe one of my players in a game that I'm running is investigating the local thieves guild and asks the barkeep at the lodge how he can get some work to earn a bit of coin. Maybe I want to add a unique story element with this PC, player characters interaction, on the fly, but I didn't prep it in advance because I didn't expect my player to visit the local Thieves Guild, lesson learned, during this gaming session. So what I could do is if I have my role table, in this case, I'm going to be using the Action Oracle table from page 28 of the Starforged reference guide. If I have that handy, I can take out my 2d10. Remember, one of those d10, 10-sided dice, is going to be my tens place. The other 10-sided dice is going to be my ones place. I roll them both, and I'm going to get a number between 1 and 100. Now, I already rolled this previously, and I got a 65. On the roll table, the word that is connected to the number 65 is the word mourn, as in mourning the loss of something or someone. Now, I'm going to roll again. And I already did this, but this time when I rolled and I got my number, it was 17. But I'm not going to roll on the action table. I'm going to go to page 29 in the reference guide, which is the theme table. And the theme word that is connected to the number 17 is the word cure, which is a weird way to say it. Cure, whatever. And the word cure, as in cure a deadly disease. So how could I, as the GM, respond to my player thinking of the action mourn and the theme cure? Here's what my brain came up with on the fly based on a fantasy setting that I played before. The barkeep answers you after pouring a long draught of dark brown ale for you to enjoy. Aye, local baron recently died of the pox. His wife was very fond of the old bastard. Both of them filthy rich. But guess wealth is not a cure to stave off disease and death. Funerals tonight. House should be empty, except for the lowliest of servants. If you could sneak in there and grab a particular jewel-crusted cup from the nightstand of her baroness, then maybe we could talk about some future employment, eh? Now notice I used the word mourning, but the word mourning never came up in how I was talking to my player. It was a plot point for why somebody died, how there was an empty house. The word cure did come up actually, but it was a lack of a cure, that the Baron couldn't find a cure and his money was no cure for him. He still died in the end. And this set up my player for an interesting heist and a potential future set of plot points, all related to being maybe a part of the Thieves Guild. And I could have also maybe rolled in on the items table if I wanted to. You know, you can find tons of great roll tables online. So I just came up with the jewel encrusted cup, but it really could have been anything, and maybe even something with magical properties. And one tool that I love that I've used for many years, and it's been around since 2009, is Donjon. I'll put a link in the show notes for you to use this tool. It's a free online generator website. It generates everything from NPCs, NPC names, professions, across multiple different tabletop RPG systems and different genres. So why use Oracle tables, roll tables as a GM? Well, because it frees up your mind. It helps you not overplan, but also be in the moment and be creative. It gives you those open-ended questions that really prompt some amazing moments. Quick pause in the episode. If you are considering playing a GM-less game to steal its good parts to include in your GM-led game, one of my favorites is Goblin Quest the RPG by game designer Grant Howitt. Simply put, you play as green, tiny little goblins trying to succeed in a perfectly hopeless quest in a Lord of the Ring-esque setting. In case you missed Season 1 of Claim to Game, I packaged together everything and tied it with a nice little bow. In the show notes, you can find a link to access my free resource, the complete 7-episode series all about how to play Goblin Quest the RPG. And you'll find the complete 7-episode series about the rules hacks to Goblin Quest, giving you different settings, character choices, and modes of play, still using the same rules as Goblin Quest. Picture yourself pretending to be gross, grotty little buggers on your next game night with your closest friends. You'll be wreaking havoc all over the Great Battle Camp in no time. Thanks, and now back to the episode. And our third, not-so-secret secret, derived from long-form improv comedy, we have the principle of yes and. The Upright Citizens Brigade Comedy Improvisation Manual, man, that's a mouthful, defines the improvisation concept of yes and as follows. Yes refers to the idea in long-form improv comedy that you should be agreeing with any information your scene partner is giving you about the reality of your scene. The term and refers to the adding of new information that relates to the previous information given by your scene partner. Now, if the yes and principle is good enough for SNL alum and acclaimed comedian Amy Poehler, as well as countless other comedians who have gone through UCB, Upright Citizens Brigade, then it's good enough for me and probably good enough for you. GM-less games don't have a monopoly on yes and improv also happens in GM-led games too. However, in most GM-less games, players aren't able to outright deny or change the reality of the story that's put forth by other players. In episode 35, we talked about the top 5 tabletop RPGs put forth by the r/RPG Reddit community, and in each one of them, Polaris, The Fall of Magic, The Quiet Year, Fiasco 2E, Ironsworn Starforged, players are not able to change the reality set forth by the other players on the previous turn when those other players have the narrative control of the scene. There is a perpetual yes happening here, which is true to the beauty of improvisation built into these games. And the other players on their turn, they can add to the story. That's the and of the principle. But they aren't going to be using their and to go back and undo the action of the previous player, which really holds true to the yes and principle of improv comedy. This isn't necessarily saying we have to have funny games, but the idea is that we are collaborating in the creation of this scene, and we aren't kicking our partner or our scene partners or other players to the curb when they're trying to create something. We're not just undoing all of their actions. So how does this help the GM-led game? Well, I believe the GM should uphold and arbitrate not only the mechanics of the rules and of the game, but they can lean into the GM-less game's purity to ask their players not to undo what other players are creating, which gives the world a feel of reality and immersion. And we talked about this back in episode 16 with Robin D. Laws and his idea of keeping your eye on the ball, knowing what the scene is that's being offered to you, especially if you're at a convention and playing with people that maybe you don't know as well. Usually there's pre-made characters, usually there's a pre-made scene or some type of one shot that you're going to be playing so that you can get familiar with a certain game that you're interested in. It would not be in the spirit of storytelling if somebody said, hey, you walk into an inn and you decide, oh, actually I'm gonna go to the cave that's across town while the rest of the party needs to engage in the people in the inn. That doesn't make sense. You're not keeping your eye on the ball, and you're not accepting the reality of your scene partners that have been set in front of you. You're not honoring the principle of yes and. There was also a time where this happened to me, and I think I talked about it way back in one of the very first episodes. I was in a game, one of my very first D&D games as a player, and we went into a cave. I think we were playing one of the D&D starter set adventures, and there was a bunch of wolves. Well, we started battling these wolves, and things went awry, and I believe I was a halfling barbarian at the time. Things were not looking good. And one of the party members decided they were going to disengage from the battle and go look at something else that was happening farther up the cave. What was the end result of not honoring the principle of yes and? Well, we died, the people battling the wolves, the players battling the wolves, and the player who went to investigate the cave, well, those wolves hunted him down and he died too. So it's really important as a group of players collaboratively telling a story to honor that principle of yes and. Sometimes it's the difference between life and death. The exception to this, of course, would be if players are creating elements that another player does not feel comfortable with, either emotionally, mentally, and sometimes a physical response can happen, high blood pressure or panic or anything like that. And that is where safety tools like the X card should be invoked. Like we should be using those to make sure that we can scrap an idea that is causing some sort of phobia or fear that is not wanted, and then rewind the situation and redo the storytelling. But this isn't really what we're talking about here with yes and. We're talking about legitimate things that everybody has agreed upon that is okay game for gameplay. We want to, yes, that is the reality, and add on to that story. So when you are at heart a game master and you want to quickly master the secrets from a GM-less game, remember the following. 1. Allow your players to be a part of the world building as they answer your open-ended questions. Two, use roll tables or tools that generate prompts for yourself as the GM to spark your own creativity as you are GMing. And finally, don't forget to remind your group to embody the spirit of yes and, or as Robin D. Laws reminded me, pick up the ball that you were given and run with it. Join us next time as we find the best ways to have great times with friends and experience amazing stories through tabletop role playing. Are you struggling to keep a campaign going? Feeling overwhelmed as a GM or don't know how to get started? Get personalized guidance to build confidence and create engaging sessions and manage your group effectively with an absolutely free 30-minute coaching strategy call with me. You heard me right. They used to be 15 minutes, but that wasn't long enough. So during our virtual call, I will give you some quick wins, actionable steps, and clear directions that you can take away to make your game better. Click on the link in the show notes to schedule your free 30-minute coaching call today. We'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll make you that big bad evil guy dominating all other GMs in your path in just 30 minutes. Can't wait to speak with you. And may you keep having fun as you continue to make your claim to game.